throw some quick stats at you. In Canada, 2006 data, 19% of Canadians lived in rural and small town, 10,000 or less. It varies by province. Newfoundland is right up there. New Brunswick is right up there. Saskatchewan is right up there. But if you look at geography, the red dots are the CAs and the CMAs. And there's a mass of territory in the second largest country in the world that's not urban. So in terms of resource development, resource stewardship, security, quality of life, identity, Canada is enormously rural. Although when you factor in where do you work and where do you live, the MIZ, the Metropolitan Influence Zones, those shades of green, rural and urban are very connected. And it's degrees of connection. Some people, increasingly, to Newfoundland, Saskatchewan, Nova Scotia, PEI, New Brunswick, working in Fort McMurray, all over rural Canada, commuting to jobs. If oil prices keep going up, it'll be interesting how sustainable that is. But right now, rural service centers in Newfoundland are expanding because of the amount of money, bigger incomes than people have ever had. Long distance commuting. People commuting 2-hour drives into urban centers all over Canada. So those interconnections in labor market are just one type. I'll talk about some more. It is clear CMAs grow faster than CAs. Strong MIZ grows faster than weak MIZ, like it or not. Except in rural remote where it's the Aboriginal population that skews it. And the odd resource town that's booming. But of course they boom and bust. And it is a lie, constantly stated in the Canadian media, especially the Globe and Mail, that we are the most urban country in the world. It is a lie. They're using, and Roy McGregor in the Globe did a great hatchet job on this a few years ago. They're using out-of-date StatsCan data that use a community of 2,000 people as the cutoff for urban. So this is one measure that Ray uses from the OECD. Canada's about middle of the pack. And absolutely, urban is growing faster than rural. But we still have a significant rural population, and we definitely have a significant interdependency of rural and urban, like everywhere. So the first project I'm going to talk about fairly quickly is one led by the mothership, Toronto, University of Toronto, Munk Centre. I mean, it's the mothership of the mothership. Good people, top-notch scholars. David Wolf, Barrett Gertler, Richard Florida is on the advisory committee for the project. It's an MCRI, a SSHRC-funded major collaborative research initiative, social dynamics of economic performance, innovation, and creativity. So they did one MCRI a few years back on clusters. Steel industry in Hamilton, video and film in Toronto, etc. They didn't do anything in Atlantic Canada on that one. Then they went after a second one to look more at what are the interdependencies in a region, the social interactions that build competitive advantage that allow sectoral clusters to succeed. The social dynamics. Really good project. David's leading it. St. John's is one of 15 city regions being studied across Canada. Jill Grant is the lead for Halifax. The Harris Centre, being the Harris Centre, wasn't content just to leave it as St. John's. The crowd in Toronto figure St. John's is a very small city. Really, you know, it's nice of us to include you in the project. We wanted to extend it to smaller urban centers within Newfoundland and Labrador. Corner Brook, where Memorial University's Grenfell College campus is. Labrador West, which is booming. Can't get enough labor. And Clarenville, which is a really neat community just off the Avalon Peninsula, expanding rapidly, people moving in from rural areas, close to industrial development on the Burin Peninsula related to oil, as well as oil refineries, etc. And we're applying the same methodology as the Wolf Project across Canada to each of these places. Looking at the innovation process, looking at talent attraction and retention, the Richard Florida favorite topic, and looking at my favorite topic, civic engagement, governance capacity. So theme one of that project on innovation talks to firms. It's about clusters and building competitiveness. Don't know if you can read the text there. I'm sure the presentation will be on the website. Happy to share it. The Richard Florida type talent attraction and retention, the hypothesis Talent is attracted to and retained by cities that offer a richness of employment opportunity, high quality of life, critical mass of cultural activity, and social diversity. The creative class advocates argue strongly, and there's great debate over what they really meant, that it's the creative class's presence in your city that leads to innovativeness that drives your economy. Whereas the traditional economic geographers who actually look at data point out that no, actually, it's having good jobs, propulsive industries that are based on exports, and if you have a good quality of life, it feeds on itself. So it's tangly, so the research is looking at that. And finally, inclusive communities and civic engagement. A key societal challenge is to create the conditions in which firms, associations, public agencies engage in a collective process of interactive learning, adaptation to stimulate innovation and creativity. So how do you build the trust so that you share knowledge, so that you gain those external economies? You save on transaction costs. You have knowledge flows. And governance is a critical piece of that. Josh Lepowski from Geography at Memorial has been our lead on theme 2, the Richard Florida stuff. And he did a little bit of research and showed how, well, even defining a small city is kind of messy. By the ISRN, that's the Wolf Project stuff, St. John's is very small. A large city is 1 million people or more. But by some other definitions, St. John's is a medium size or a large. And it's kind of like that StatsCan lie that people constantly use to say that Canada is the most urban country in the world. So let's be clear about our definitions. What Josh has been arguing from his part of the research, and geographers are very good at this, it's relative city size and its role in the economy that's really important. And it's why we say St. John's is a metropolis on the margins. On the left-hand side, you can see the flows into and out of St. John's of population. We're leading the country in growth in real estate market, which is a good thing and a bad thing. But we have traditionally lost more population to Ontario, to Halifax, now these days to Alberta, although it's leveled off in the last couple of years. But that's during a recession, it's often the case. More people come home, then when it picks up elsewhere, they'll go back. We'll see. In the governance part of the research, some of the findings I've learned so far, and some of them are pretty obvious, our federal-provincial is a basket case currently. There is a overt conflict between the provincial government and the federal government, and the stakes are high, but there hasn't been good mechanisms to reach deals. The bureaucrats are still working together a fair bit, but a lot of big issues are not getting resolved, and now our premier was in Ottawa recently. Maybe we're going to see some progress on that front. But when what's the line about in Greek mythology? When the gods are fighting, the humans better watch out, because that's where the real power is. There has been great examples of success in the St. John City region in the ocean technology sector, where the federal and provincial governments have invested long-term to build capacity in research and development. Memorial University, the National Research Council, and the private sector in that area is really taking off. A lot of technology-based firms related to oil and gas, related to fishery, and a lot of acoustic and IT-related stuff that's bridging into other sectors. So there's some good things. Municipal sector is being starved and ignored and downplayed. Economic development players, we have a network of regional economic development boards, starved, ignored, downplayed. We lack organizations that span functional regions. And I'll talk a bit more about functional regions. It's how people live their lives, how the economy actually happens, not the administrative boundaries that we impose. Municipalities are dots on the map. No one lives within that dot, all the activities they depend on. But even our regional agencies are reflecting the needs when they were established or in a convenient administrative setup. And often activities reify around those boundaries. So our governance mechanisms need to develop ways to adapt, partner, link up, across the administrative boundaries.